This is chapter 2, part 2. So, we talked about the idea of why research is awesome, why it's better than like a personal testimonial, etc. Now we need to talk about types of publications and how research is published and how we actually consume it. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about empirical articles, review articles, meta-analyses, chapters and edited books, and full-length books. So in order to do this, let's go ahead and talk about what the differences are really quickly, and then we'll discuss how to find these and what the differences look like on when you're looking for actual articles. So empirical articles are ones where they actually do a study. Normally this is an experiment, so when they actually run a specific experiment that shows the data, that's an empirical article. We prefer these empirical articles to be peer-reviewed. Peer-reviewed means that other scientists look at them and say, yes, this is a good article, it's well done, there's no bad confounds or biases that aren't taken care of. A review article is an article that's published in a journal, but it reviews a lot of different information that has already been published, right? So it takes a bunch of information and says, all right, here's what we know about this topic based off of all these different studies. That is a review article. A meta-analysis is like a review article, except that instead of just saying, all right, here's what we understand, and you just kind of interpret it, the author interprets it, the author runs actual statistics looking at what's called the effect size of each of the different studies it's looking at. So if I was doing a meta-analysis, I would take all the different studies about a specific topic, and I would run a statistical test to see how big the effect size was of all of these together. A chapter in an edited book is kind of like an article. Generally, these are like a review article, sometimes meta-analysis, could be empirical articles, but they're not published in journals. They're published in a book, and each chapter is written by a different author. So basically, it's like a journal, only it's a book. That's kind of the different thing. And in this case, they're invited to do this. Normally, these are people who are well known in their field, and they're invited to write a chapter in this particular book about this particular topic. And then, of course, a full-length book is probably what you're most associated with. It is the whole thing. The whole thing's written by one person about a specific topic. So let's kind of look at the difference between these by looking at the library's website and how we look up articles. All right, so I am going to, here is the university's library website. I hope you're associated with this, you know what we're talking about. One thing that you should know is that if you're on campus, you will automatically have access to full-length journals, etc. But if you're off campus, then you need to sign in order to do this. Now, you'll be able to do searches, etc., but you can't have access to a lot of things if you're not signed in. So, for example, when we're looking for things in psychology, normally what we're looking for is a database called PSYC-Info. PSYC-Info is probably the most common database. There's other ones out there, and I'm not saying those are wrong, but PSYC-Info is probably the most common one in psychology. Now, when I search for this, here's what happens. PSYC-Info, searched by the library's website, is the first database that it recommends. And this is what I want to click. I'm going to click on the database recommendation of PSYC-Info. When I do this, it is going to give me the search, and I think I might have already logged in on this one, so it's not going to ask me. Now, there are several different things that you should be aware of. We're going to go through the different ones: empirical articles, review articles, meta-analysis, chapters and edited books, and books, looking at them here on PSYC-Info. All of those can be found here, as well as a lot of other ones as well. In fact, if you scroll down, these are all the different types of things that they're going to give in PSYC-Info. Of these, the ones that we really care about are going to be probably peer-reviewed journal articles. And you don't have to click through it on here. If you'll notice, if you ever want peer-reviewed, and for our projects you do want peer-reviewed, then you just click this button right here. But before we do that, let's get some other things, because some things are not peer-reviewed. So, for example, books are not peer-reviewed, etc. Let's go ahead and look at attraction and show what it gives us. When I just type attraction into the search field, It's going to give me lots of different things. In fact, it looks like it's going to give me stuff in different languages even, right? Over here, we see we have scholarly journals. We have over 10,000 different ones about attraction. Separate books, 1,600. Dissertations and theses, I've got those. I think, let's see if they're going to give me any more. That's all they're going to give me. Good. Dissertations and theses are awesome. They are not peer-reviewed. Don't cite them. They are not, you can't use them as citations. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do that at all. All right? Well, when we look at these over here on the right, we can see that there's a lot of different studies that we're going to talk about. Okay? So let's go ahead and look at the different kinds of things that we have here. You can kind of see there's different ones, test case psychobiology, sexual, et cetera, et cetera. So let's go ahead and click on this one right here. How common is sexual attraction towards clients? Already we know that in this particular case, it's in a journal called Counseling Psychology Quarterly. So let's click on it. When we click on this, we know that this is going to be a journal article because it is in Psychology Quarterly. So it can't be a book. It can't be a chapter in an edited book because it's in a journal. All right. When we look at this, it's going to tell us a little bit about it, right? It's going to tell us the methodology, et cetera. In fact, right here, it says the methodology is an empirical study. This is an empirical journal article. Here's another way we can tell whether or not it's an empirical journal article. Let's try and find it. Let's see if it has the information that we want. Here is the actual article in online form. And it's talking about a lot of different things, talking about stuff, et cetera. This is going to give us the abstract. Come on. I'll go ahead and click on. Let's go ahead and grab the PDF out of it. And I'll download it. And it'll show us the PDF. All right, so here's the actual article itself. It goes through the introduction. We'll go through the parts later on. But here we know, if we have a method, it's either going to be a journal, an empirical article, or a meta-analysis. We know it's not a meta-analysis because it doesn't say meta-analysis on it, right? When we look at the actual abstract itself, it says basically what happened, and it only talks about the study that they did. Questionnaires were sent to 286 chartered counseling psychologists and British Psychological Registrar, et cetera, and then they talk about the results. This is their own study. That's what it is about, all right? So this is an empirical article, an empirical journal article. When we look at the actual search that we did, we can see whether or not it's going to count as peer-reviewed, or we can just click it right here and limit it to peer-reviewed. My session ended. Great. Let's try this again. So when we look at the actual, here it is, empirical article, et cetera, it goes down and looks at the different ones, et cetera, where it comes from. All right, document type, journal, peer-reviewed journal article. We know this is a peer-reviewed empirical study. Remember, we love peer-reviewed. We want peer-reviewed, but we're only going to see peer-reviewed in empirical journal articles, sometimes in review articles, and in meta-analyses. Chapters in edited books, the editors kind of function as the peer review, and books are not peer-reviewed at all. Okay. So that is an empirical article that we looked at. Next, let's go back to our search. Let's look for attraction, but this time we're going to put psychology review, and we'll talk about what a review article looks like. When I click on this one, here's what we get. So first, when you look at this, is research on beauty only skin deep? Review of the psychology of physical attraction. This is not a review article. This is a review like a book review or a movie review. It's reviewing specifically a book called The Psychology of Physical Attraction. That's what it is. It is not a review journal article. like we are looking for. This is a review journal article. So transference and countertransference in sports psychology, service delivery part one, a review of erotic attraction. What they're looking for in this case, let's go ahead and click on this one. This is reviewing different literature about sports psychologists falling in love with their clients and vice versa, right? So it says right here, in part one, we review the literature on erotic transference and countertransference in psychotherapy and sports psychology service delivery and make suggestions about it. Meaning they're going to go through all of the different research that they have about this and talk about it. So for example, when we look for the actual study, here it is. Come on. There it is. So this is a full article. And you'll notice that they're looking at a bunch of different studies. So these are studies by Epstein and Mann. And there's some more studies. And this is these studies. This is what we know about this topic. And the topic in this case is erotic attraction between sports psychologists and their clients. You'll notice that they don't have a methodology here. There's no methods section because they don't have a method. It's not an empirical article. Empirical articles, they run their own studies. In this case, all they're doing is looking at past research and articles about these things. That's what a review article does. However, they are not running any statistics to do so. They're just going through all the information that we know about it. Now, let's go back and look for a meta-analysis. So we're going to change our search now. Let's change it. Go back to attraction meta-analysis. A meta-analysis will almost always will say it right in the title, okay? Is actual similarity necessary for attraction? So what this does is when you click on it, it's like a review. It's going to talk about a bunch of different studies that had happened, right? But what they really did is they took all these studies and they meta-analyzed 460, in this case, 460 different effect sizes from 313 different investigations. All right, so what they did is they took all of the studies, all of the actual data from those studies, and they put them into a statistical analysis called a meta-analysis. And what they found is that actual similarity and perceived similarity were significant and large indicators of attraction, right? So what if you actually look at the full text on this one, you will see how they did this. They will, come on if I can scroll down. They will talk about, they'll do an introduction, and then they'll talk about their method. And the method in this case is we're looking for all these different studies. We got the studies. Here's the sample, how we coded the data. Here's the statistical methods that we did. All right? So that is a meta-analysis. Now, a chapter in an edited book. A chapter in an edited book can take a variety of things. It could be an empirical study. It could be a review. It's often a review. It could be a meta-analysis. It's most often probably going to be a review. But it is going to look a little bit different. So let's go for, let's look for attraction chapter and see what they give us. Okay. Here we go. So this one I'm skipping because the person, two-person collective systems, this is the author, Theodore Newcomb, right? And this particular chapter, the acquaintance process, is also by Theodore Newcomb. So it could be an edited book, but I can't tell right there. However, here, look what we got. This is the name of the chapter, Insider Perspectives on Attraction. It is in a book called The Handbook of Relationship Initiation by Susan Sprecher and Amy Wenzel and John Harvey, who are, those EDs means editors. They are editing this book. This is a chapter in an edited book. When you click on this one, it'll give you the abstract. It's going to be harder for us to actually get the full text, though, because it is in an edited book. Let's see if it even has that as an option for us. Sometimes they do, but generally they don't. So for this case, I would have to request that item because it's an actual chapter in a book. All right. Versus, let's go ahead and go back to where we were. So this is a chapter in an edited book, and in this case, it looks like it's going to be a review of the information. In fact, often some of the great reviews are in chapters in edited books. Now, the last one we're going to talk about is just a book by itself. So let's go back to a basic one. I'll just do attraction by itself. And I'm sure we're going to be able to find some book that somebody's written about attraction. So it's a journal. Interesting. These are all a good one. Okay. So definition of love. Let's see what this is. Oh, so this is in another book. It might be a chapter in an edited book. Let's see. Might just be too general. Yeah. The Everything Law of Attraction book. That would work. There's Attraction's 2 books. All right, here we go. So this is a book, The Heart of Female Same-Sex Attraction, a comprehensive counseling service, a resource, sorry. This is a book written by Janelle Hallman, and that's what it's about, right? It's 311 pages long. It's a full book. Okay. So why do you care about these things? Well, there's lots of things that you should care about here. One is you'll need to come up with resources about these, about different topics. You should be able to look at how different people have done different things. And if you want to know generally what's going on in the whole field, you do a review article or a meta-analysis. If you want, or a book for that matter. But if you want to know how the specific methodology was done, you got to look at an empirical article. The empirical article will have how the method was done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, one thing that you should always do, though, and this is going to help you a lot when you're searching for stuff. So let's say that we find something that is important to us. So let's say that, let me find a good one. So let's say that I'm interested in understanding the heart of female same-sex attraction. Well, one thing that's important is that the references, I'm clicking on references here, the references are available. And Janelle Hallman has already done a lot of research on this topic. You don't have to go and find all the research on that topic. You can just look at her resources. Steal them. Not by stealing them. I don't mean like steal. I mean you're gonna look these up. But other people have done a lot of the research for you. Look at reference sections. Look at references. Read the introduction and look at their references. When you look those up, then you'll find a lot of the information that you need to do your own studies and to get some backup of things, right? All right. So let's go ahead and look at some different questions. Let's go back to the slides. So first, here we go. Which of these is most common? So by far the most common in psychology is going to be an empirical article where people do the actual study and they publish on the study, right? That is the most common. You have to have a lot of empirical articles to get a meta-analysis, and generally psychologists are not publishing full-length books. So People who are psychologists, they're not publishing the full-length book. That's not what's going on. All right. When we look at a part of an APA article, these are parts of the APA article, meaning an empirical article, where we're actually talking about what research they did, meaning what study they did. Not just looking up what research other people have done, but actually doing a study, meaning like an experiment. That would be a study. When we actually do this, there are different parts of an APA article. The first part is a title page, then the abstract, then the body of the paper, and in the body of the paper you have subsection: introduction, method, results, discussion, and then a separate section for the references. So when we look up any one of these articles that we were looking at before, so let's see if we can find one that was up before. Okay. This was a review, so it's not going to have what we want. I can't remember if I looked up any one of these. Let's just kind of look up whatever one of these is interesting. Let's go back to our results page. And we will look at just the attraction one. All right, so let's go ahead. That is actually going to be something else. That's kind of interesting. Let's go ahead and look at try this again and do a peer-reviewed. All right. Okay, let's do one that's pretty easy to understand. Here we go. You do not only hurt the one you love, self-protective responses to attractive relationship alternatives. Let's go ahead and take a look at this article. And the reason why this is such a big deal is because you will need to write an APA empirical article. You'll need to have all of the parts to it: a title page, an abstract, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. When we look at the full thing, what you should know is that APA style is not based on, let's see if we can grab this one. Oh, we can't. That's interesting. All right, let me pull up one that I know that I like already. So here's the one that we talked about in chapter 1 about click-through rates for Facebook ads. APA style is based on submitting something to a journal. What you see right here is the final journal article, okay? What you are going to create is an APA style paper, which looks a little bit different than this. One way to show the difference, I'll show you, is we're going to go to Purdue OWL experimental report. When we do this, Purdue OWL, by the way, is a great resource for APA. It's free, which is really nice. So let's go ahead and go to the sample paper, and they'll show us a sample paper. And we'll look at the difference between the sample paper and the actual published paper. So the published paper gives us the title and the names of all the authors. These are all of the different authors. Now notice how these authors are not in alphabetical order. They're in order of the ones who contributed the most. So Sean F. Higgins did the most, was the most influential here, and then Maurice Mulvena, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right? Then we see the abstract. An abstract is a complete synopsis of what happened in the study. It's a full synopsis of what happened in the study. It's not a teaser. It gives it all away. Look. So look, it gives us the results. It gives us the implication. It's all here. Then they start with the body of the paper, which starts with an introduction, background, etc. Hypotheses, and then the methodology. All right. So it even shows us all the stuff with the methodology. This is all methods and then results. And then the discussion of what it all means. At the very end, then we have the references. So this makes it look like the major sections reference is just as big a section as conclusion. But on actual APA articles, it's not how it goes. This is what it looks like when you are going to be handing it in. So these blue and green things are just notes for when you're reading them. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. I'm going to go ahead and download it so that we can look at it and you can see the different parts a little bit better. So okay, this is a title page. This is the title: Code Switching and Sequential Bilingualism, a Polish-English case study. This is what the title page looks like. It has the title, the name of the author, and their affiliation. It doesn't have anything else. Anything else. It doesn't have the date, doesn't have a class, doesn't have anything else. Except at the top, it has something called the running head. Now, the original APA style was meant that if a publisher accidentally dropped a stack of papers, they would be able to put them back in order. The running head is the head at the top of each page in the margin that gives a brief version of the title, only like 5 words, and the page number. So you'll notice that on every other page, code switching and sequential bilingualism is going to be at the top of the page. The title page is a major section. You know you have a major section when you have a new page break. So it's its own page. Then on its own page, you have the abstract. Everything in APA style is double-spaced. You'll talk later about how to do citations and things at a different time. But this is the abstract. Notice how it's just one paragraph. If you've got more than one paragraph in an abstract, it's way too long. This should be about 150 to 250 words. That's how long it should be. It should be one paragraph and only one. That's why it's not indented at all, right here. You start a new page, and you start the new page with the title of the whole article. We know that you're getting into the introduction because this is the body of the paper. You don't write the word introduction. You can have subsections, that's fine, but you don't write the word introduction. Then a subsection of the body would be your method, not methods. It's not plural. There's only one method. And then the subsection under that subsection would be the participants. Okay. Now these are the ones in bold. Notice how the word abstract up here on the abstract page. Let's find it. There it is. Whoop. Abstract is not in bold because it's a major section. Doesn't need to be in bold. The title also not in bold because that's what's telling us that this is the body of the paper. Method is a subsection. That's why it's down here. Now it just happens to be at the end of the page. You don't do a page break for the method section. Okay. Then we have, after method, we have results. And in the results, we only talk about the actual statistical results. We only talk about the specific results of what's going on, right? Results, look, we're saying, hey, this is what we collected. Here's the data. Here's the data. Here's the data. And then you will find the discussion section. Now, this just happens to be on a new page. You don't normally have a page break for the discussion section. The discussion section tells us in words what the results really mean. Then the discussion section is the last part of the main body. Then we have a new page and the references section. And these are in APA style references. Just because you have them here doesn't mean you can skip having them in the body of the paper. These are what we call in-text citations, and these are the actual references in the page, the references section on the page. So these are the different parts of the APA empirical article. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap it up then.